Well, morning folks, welcome to another post. So today, April 25th, is Anzac Day in Australia. Anzac's meaning Australia and New Zealand Army Corps, and they were some of the first soldiers that went over to Europe in World War I and to fight, and that's where the sort of name Anzac came from. So it's a day when we basically honour our fallen, and we often say lest we forget in that situation. They often have dawn services and things like that. This year, of course, a little bit different. Usually there's marches during the day as well through the various cities, but this year it'll be a bit different because of the COVID-19 situation. Anzac Day has always been an interesting one for me, because really when I grew up, we didn't, apart from perhaps my stepfather, we didn't take a lot of notice of it. I didn't really know much about it for a lot of years. I remember as little as 10 or 15 years ago, commentators on TV saying that they thought it might actually die out because there were so few people marching and so few people actually watching the marches. But then something changed in the next 2 or 3 years after that, and suddenly the crowds just grew, and it's become absolutely huge here in Australia, which, you know, I think it's a good thing. Obviously, anybody who goes off to fight any war anywhere, let's face it, no matter which side you're on, generally speaking, you get a gun put in your hand or whatever it is, and you're told to go and do something. Well, yeah, I don't want to get into the politics of it too much. I personally, and I'm going to be honest here, and this might shock a few people, I've never been to a dawn service. I don't know that I ever will go to one. And it's not because I don't respect that tradition and those people, but well, I've never really been a mainstream sort of person anyway, but also there's just something about that I don't quite gel with. And that's fine. I've always honoured the soldiers, the fallen soldiers on any side, in any war, in my own quiet way. I've always done that. I'm not going to go into details of how I do that, but I do. And I guess in a sense this video is a part of that. Now I've only had I've had some family who in the forces. Hi Jules, was in, and one other member I think that's still in. And my stepfather was he was in World War II. Never knew him very well, so we didn't get on too well, and I never actually heard much about. I didn't really know for a lot of years that he was actually in the war. He never said anything, of course. He used to go to the RSL and that kind of thing, and yeah, like a lot of those soldiers, never really talked about his experiences. But I know toward the end of his life he'd had a stroke and he was in a wheelchair, and clearly he was obviously going through a lot of his life. And he only told me one story about what had happened to him in the war, and it was really interesting because he was in the islands, in the islands north of New Guinea, and fighting the Japanese, and they were on patrol. His mate was some metres, 5, 6, 7 metres in front of him, walking up a trail, and all of a sudden there was this bang, and his mate just wasn't there anymore. He'd kicked a booby trap and been basically blown apart. And I could tell just by the way he told that story, and he told it as simply as I've just said it, but I could hear in his voice and his body language and his tone and everything, I could just hear the pain of it all, and I'll never forget that. And it really helped me understand who he was, because I never really knew him that well. So yeah, I think about that story from time to time. Yeah. So it's a bit of a somber day in some respects, but it's also reflective as well. It was really interesting. Very still here today. Very still here this morning. When I looked out the window and looked at my trees around my window, I'd never seen them as still as that. No breeze at all. Virtually no breeze. Even down here by the ocean now, there's very, very little air movement, which is quite unusual, really. So, in more general terms, I hope everybody's doing okay. Things, we seem to be flattening off the curve with this COVID thing, which is nice. Nice to know, and it's good that everybody's efforts have gone towards that happening. Feel a bit sorry for the poor buggers in the USA, I have to say. Anyway, I won't comment too much further on that one. But suffice to say, as many of the chemical companies have told people over there, for Pete's sake, don't inject yourself with any cleaners or drink any cleaners or anything like that. Goodness me. Okay. Live well. Stay happy. Bye for now.